Today's training will focus on the Aloha table service front of house basics for servers. We'll be clocking in, exploring the Aloha interface, ringing up orders, applying payments, adjusting tips, splitting checks, checking out, and clocking out, amongst other functions. Thanks for joining us. Let's get started. First, we'll enter our employee number on the employee login screen. Today we'll be using number 102. When we go to clock in, we can see the different jobs that have been assigned to us here on the left side of the screen. Should you be working another job like bartender or cashier, you'll have to highlight the job in question and then click clock in. For today's training, we're going to clock in as a server. So we'll highlight server and click clock in. This takes us to our floor plan screen. In the floor plan screen, you can see the different tables available. We also have access buttons to go to the ATO interface. We have the Working with Tables button. It'll take us to the Working with Tables screen. We have some optional buttons here on the right side of the screen as well. If we were to need to combine and detach tables or possibly get to the Adjust Tips screen, we could hit Done to exit the screen. Here you can see the tables are all currently listed in white as they are all available. When a table gets picked up by somebody else, it will be listed in purple, and when it's listed under you, it will be listed in green, so you can separate the difference between your tables and the other server's tables working on the shift with you. Now in our floor plan, we can see that a table is listed in purple, which means another server working with us today has opened a table, and that is their table. They're currently owning that table number 1. Let's go and explore the Working with Tables screen. So in the upper right, we'll click WWT screen. Let's explore the Working with Tables screen. In the lower left, we can see there's a table, which would take us back out to our floor plan. We can also start a new table or tab here if we were to hit New, so we can open tables and tabs through the Working with Tables screen. We could adjust the payment on a transaction. We could adjust tips. We could run our checkout. We could see our sales currently that we've populated. We could go to key functions, which we'll explore that a little bit here soon. And we could process a refund, which is sometimes a managerial function. In the upper right, we can see that we could click tabs or tables, and any tabs or tables listed under us would be listed here in this blue area of the screen. Let's go back out to our floor plan screen. We'll go ahead and click the table over here on the left side of the screen, and that takes us back out here to the floor plan. Let's go ahead and open up table number 5. When we click on table number 5, this takes us to our Aloha order entry screen. Let's explore the Aloha order entry screen. In the Aloha order entry screen, we have the ability to click the table again to go back to the floor plan. We could clear any unordered items that we've populated in the order entry check. We can see that here in white. We could split a check or split a seat. We have a Done button, which would finalize the order. If we needed to hit Done or exit the screen, we could do it that way. We do have Send, To Go, Rush, and No Make, our order modes listed across the upper right, and these are going to send the items to the kitchen or bar. The To Go order mode is going to go ahead and flag the order with some exclamation points and probably capitalized letters to make sure that the kitchen knows that the order is to go. So there will be some flagging there for the kitchen, including Rush and No Make. So these will also let the kitchen know that there's a difference between these orders and the standard Send order. Down the middle of the screen, we have our sub menus. I like to say that the sub menus are kind of like sections of our menu. In this case, we have NA beverages, appetizers, entrees, and dessert. So we have some various sections of our menu here, and as we click through these, we can see the different items available to order. Some of these items, as we order them, will ask us some questions, some modifier questions, so we'll see that soon. Down here across the bottom in the lower left, we can see that we can order items for the table or for the seat, and there is a Next Seat button, which is going to allow us to add seats to the check if we were to click Next Seat. And then, of course, we can highlight these down here and determine which particular seat we're going to order items for, so we don't have to auction things off out front. We have a Close button in the lower left, so as we are ready to apply payment to the check, we can hit the Close button to go to the payment screen. Again, we saw Next Seat. We have the Transfer button, where we could transfer items from this check to another. We could print receipts from here, so print a receipt for the customer. We could delete an item. A lot of times this will be a void item if we had sent it in, and we'll have to have a manager approval for that. But if we do ring up an item and we find it to be a mistake, we could hit delete and delete that most recently rung in item. We can quantify items, so we can hit quantity, and it would allow us to enter the quantity of an item. We need to order the item first, so if we hit quantity, and then we could say 2 and say okay. We could add 2 Cokes to the check that way. And again, if I want to delete those off, I can just click that delete button there, as they had not been ordered yet. I could repeat the last ordered item. So if I were to order an item, I could also hit repeat and repeat that item. And then in some cases, if we need to modify an item, we do have the modify option. And if the item is available to have modifiers attached to it or make some optional modifications, we could go ahead and hit modify and modify the item there. And then we have the ability to save a phone order if we're using ATO. That's another training offered. And then of course, over here on the right, we have a hold button should we hold items in our environment. Now that we've explored the order entry screen, let's go over here and we'll just make sure that we can highlight, and we'll delete these 2 Cokes we ordered as they were just mock orders. You can see I can highlight the items here on the left and hit delete. And that's going to take them off as they had not been sent in. Remember, items that have been sent in will turn black in the order entry queue. But this time we're going to go ahead and order for table 5, but by seat number. So let's go ahead and come down here to the bottom of the screen. We'll say next seat, so we can have 2 seats at this table. Seat number 1 is going to have a Coke today, and seat number 2 is going to have a Sprite. Now that we've got those items over here in the order entry check, we can click send on the right, and we can go prepare those for the customer. Let's go ahead and click the floor plan button here, the table, to go back to the floor plan screen. And you can see our table number 5 is listed in green as it's now active in our table listed in the floor plan. Let's go ahead and add table number 5's order to the check. So we'll go ahead and click on table number 5 again. That's going to take us into our Aloha order entry screen where we can then highlight the seat number in question and we could place the order. But this time the table is going to go ahead and have something to share. They're going to go ahead and start off with a side, an a la carte side today, an order of French fries. For the table, you can see that we did highlight table and entered that in for the table. You can see it's still highlighted in blue, but we'll go ahead and come over here on the right and hit send, and we'll send that into the kitchen where the French fries ticket will print in the kitchen. And again, we can click the table over here on the left to go back out to our floor plan screen, and we can continue to work on other things. Let's go ahead and place an order for table number 6. It's been sat with a table of 2, so we click on table 6. That of course takes us to our Aloha order entry screen. This particular table is going to start off with a couple different sodas on the table. So we're going to have a Dr. Pepper for seat 1, and we can come down here and hit next seat and order the lemonade for seat 2. And we're going to go ahead and order an appetizer for them as well. They're going to do an order of calamari. And actually, we're going to go ahead and delete that because we want to put that on the table. So we're going to come over here and click table, and of course click calamari to make sure we assign that to the table. And we'll go ahead and send that in, and we can go prepare those drinks and wait for the calamari to come up. We'll go ahead and click our table up here to go back to the floor plan screen, and we can see table 5 and table 6 are listed for us. Okay, so let's go ahead and log back into the screen with our employee number and say okay. Again, we can see we have some different tables working here in our floor plan. But now let's go over here to the WWT screen, the Working with Tables screen. When we're back here in the WWT screen, we do have access to access the tables from here. If we were to click on a table, it's going to open it just like out of the floor plan. And some environments don't use the floor plan, so you may see you just work out of the standard Working with Tables screen, and rather than toggling back and forth between the two. But let's go ahead and click on table number 5. That takes us into the Aloha order entry screen where we can now add some items for seat 1 and seat 2. They are ready to place their order, so we're going to go ahead and highlight seat 1, and we'll come on over here to entrees, and seat 1 is going to have the 8-ounce sirloin. Now when we hit the 8-ounce sirloin, it takes us to the modifier screen. You can see that this item does have some modifiers attached to it. We can see here that there is optionally up top here action mods. So if we were to click on the action mods modifier group, we do have the ability to click a quick message here like don't make, sauce on side, see server, so you can see some variations. And if you do see these arrows down here, you can arrow down and back up between some different available options on these pages. We do also have the modifier codes here listed across the top where we could sometimes see these are going to be listed for different veggies, and we could say no tomato or extra pickle and things of that nature. These force modifiers we see a little farther down here, so if we were to say okay, of course they're going to be the ones that are going to make us pick a choice, and we can't bypass these. So if I say okay, you can see I have to have a minimum of 1 here. You can also see that in the upper portion of the screen it says choose 1. Now once I pick my temperature, it's going to carry me on over to the sides modifier group where I'm going to have to pick my side. Again, you can see this is a choose 1 option, so I'll go ahead and pick my side. and that's going to carry me back out to the Aloha order entry screen, where I can then highlight seat 2, and I'll go ahead and place the order for the stroganoff for seat 2. And again, this one's actually asking me to come with a side choice, so we're going to go ahead and choose French fries here, and go ahead and send that into the kitchen with the send order mode. Of course, those items turn black, which means they've been sent to the kitchen. Now we can click the table and chairs here, or the table, to go back out to the floor plan screen. And here we are. From the floor plan screen, we're going to access table 5. So we click on table 5. That, of course, takes us to our Aloha order entry screen. This table would like to share a dessert, so again, we're going to come over here and click table and go to our dessert sub-menu, and we'll come up here and place the order. Now, we do have a fruit tart dessert available, and it does come with a sauce, so they actually ask for the sauce on the side, but this one doesn't have any force modifiers attached to it or any optional modifiers, so we can still see that we can hit modify down here, and since this is the most recently ordered item, the fruit tart, if we hit modify, it'll take us to our modifier screen. Now in this case, this is going to give us the chance to use the typewriter, and then lower left, if we click this here, we get the keyboard where we can actually type in the message sauce on side. So I'll just say SOS, and that's going to send that type message to the kitchen when I say OK. We'll see it listed here, fruit tart SOS, and I can say OK, and that's going to attach that special message to this item that I'm going to send to the kitchen. Now it's important to know that type messages go to the kitchen in all caps with exclamation points, so they will stand out as different. Now let's go ahead and go back out here to our floor plan screen by clicking the table. Next, let's apply a payment to a check. From the floor plan screen, we're going to go ahead and click on table number 6. This takes us into our Aloha order entry screen. We're in the lower left of the screen, we're going to click the close button so we can close and apply payment to this check. So when we click close, we get to the close screen. Let's explore the close screen. In the close screen, you can see in the upper left we have the table, so we can go back out to our floor plan screen. We have the ability to print this check. If you see this print all option, that means you might have multiple checks listed in case you split the check. We'll see that later in our training. And you can see the items listed here in the order entry check with the subtotal, tax, and total for the balance. We can see here on the right that there's the payment options that we offer for different credit card options and some cash tenders available. And then on the right, we have a comp button, where the comps will usually be applied by the managers or through the manager profiles. Across the bottom, we have delete. So if we were to have the ability to delete a payment, we could delete the payment should we apply the incorrect payment or want to adjust the payment. We do have the adjust button if we're going to adjust the amount. We have a force payment button to force payment upon the card. And then we have a reprint button for the reprint of the credit card receipt. And we also have an equal pay button should we want to split this payment up equally amongst the guests. It's a nice way to split the check if we hit equal pay. And then we have a tax exempt button here at the bottom. This customer's decided to pay with cash, so we're going to go ahead and click the cash button here. This is going to take us to our payment screen, where we can see the amount in total here is listed at the top, the $37.26. We can choose to adjust that amount here, so if the customer wants to pay $40 cash, we'll enter 40 and say OK. And that's going to carry us back out here to our payment screen, where now we can see this tender has been applied to the check cash payment, and the change due is listed here at the bottom of $274. Now this check is still open and pending until we click the close button in the center of the screen. And so since this payment is all finalized and the check is ready to close, we'll go ahead and click the close button this time and close off this check. And that takes us back out to our floor plan screen, where we can see table number 6 is now available. Let's do some more exploring in the Working with Tables screen. In the upper right of our floor plan screen, we'll click WWT screen. In the Working with Tables screen, of course, we can see our open tables and tabs listed here on the right. We have our table to go back out to the floor plan screen, and we do have the ability to start a new table or tab by clicking the New button. We could transfer a check from ourselves to somebody else, or even to ourselves if we needed to rename it or rename the table or tab. We have the Key Functions area, which we'll do a quick exploration of. In the Key Functions area, we see these various special functions tabs for reports, financial, alerts, employee, and system. A lot of these functions are going to be managed through the managers on duty, and so as we look through the tabs, we may see that they are all grayed out. So some of these features are not available for us currently as a server, but if we go back, we can flip through these and see what is available. It looks like we have the ability to reprint a check out of financial, alerts, is also no alerts available to display currently, so nothing there for us. And in the employee area, if we use a scheduler, we could view our schedule. We could reprint our clock out chit or reprint our checkout if we need to out of the employee section, and then we could change our password should we want to assign ourselves to a magnetic swipe card. I'm going to go ahead and go back, and again, as we come back out here to system, we'll see that this area is also grayed out and mostly preserved for managerial profiles. So let's go ahead and go back, and in the upper portion of the screen we'll hit exit, and that's going to take us back out here to our working with tables screen. This time, let's start a table from the Working with Tables screen. We're going to come over here on the lower left and click New. This, of course, is going to prompt us for a table number, so we'll have to enter a valid table number listed here on the left. So we'll enter number 13 and say OK. And that, of course, takes us into our Aloha order entry screen. This customer is going to have an iced tea and an appetizer, some wings with hot sauce and ranch. So we'll say OK here and modify item to send those instructions to the kitchen for the sauce and the side dressing. And we'll go ahead and send that in. And we can click the table to come back out to our floor plan screen. Now this time, since table number 13 is not listed in our floor plan, we're going to go over here and click on our Working with Tables screen. And we'll see that table listed here, number 13, in the Working with Tables screen. Next, let's apply a credit card payment to a check. So we're going to click on table number 13 here in the Working with Tables screen. That's going to take us to our Aloha order entry screen, where in the lower left we're going to click the Close button. That, of course, takes us to our payment screen. This time we're going to click the Credit Card button. That's going to take us to enter the credit card number screen. Now in this case for you, you're going to swipe that card to apply that payment, but I'm going to have to enter this card manually because I'm doing this remotely. So let me go ahead and enter that card number now. Say OK. That carries us into our payment confirmation screen where we can see the amount. You could enter a tip. You can see the card number is masked here and the expiration date. We're going to go ahead and say OK. This is asking us to enter a security verification for the zip code, so I'll go ahead and enter the zip code here and say OK. That carries us back out here to our payment screen where we can see the MasterCard payment has been applied for $13.50 with a balance due of $0. Now we're going to go ahead and come up here and close this check. So we'll click Close, and that'll take us back out to our floor plan screen. Next, let's adjust tips. We can adjust tips from the floor plan screen or the Working with Tables screen. There's an Adjust Tips button in both areas. We'll start here. Let's click Adjust Tips in the lower right of the screen. This takes us to our Adjust Tips screen, where we can see here across the bottom the different tender types we accept and the ones that would accept tips. Let's hit Done. From here, that takes us back out to our floor plan screen where we're going to go to the Working with Tables screen. From the Working with Tables screen, we'll also click this Tips button in the lower left. This again takes us to the Adjust Tips screen where we can see across the bottom, again, the different tender types we accept. And the payment we accepted for our transaction was a MasterCard. So let's go ahead and highlight MasterCard in the bottom. And you can see our transaction is listed here across the top. Now, if you have multiple transactions for each card type, they'll be listed down the middle of the screen. And we'll have to highlight the transaction in question to make the adjustment to the tip. This time we're only going to adjust the tip amount, and the customer's left a tip of $2, so we're going to go ahead and click $2 here and say OK. And that's going to adjust that tip on that transaction. You can see the tip in the black box here for $2. And we're all done making our adjustments. We'll just go ahead and hit Done. And that's going to carry us back out to the Working with Tables screen. So we'll be having to leave early today, so we're going to have to transfer our remaining table number 5 to the other server on duty, server Sally 101. So we're going to go ahead and come over here from the Working with Tables screen and click the Transfer button. This is going to take us to the Transfer screen where we're going to have to confirm which table we want to transfer, so we'll go ahead and highlight table 5. And now it's asking us which employee we would like to send this to. So we're going to go ahead and highlight Sally Server 101 and say OK. And that carries us back out to our Working with Tables screen where we can see our pending transfer. This table number 5 is going to Sally 101 server. So now we're going to have to log in as Sally 101 so we can see how a transfer is accepted on the other side. Back here in the login screen, we'll enter Sally server's number 101 and say OK. And that's going to prompt us immediately upon login here that we have a pending incoming transfer. And we need to go to the Working with Tables screen in order to access and accept this transfer. So let's go ahead and click the screen and click the WWT screen. That takes us into our Working with Tables screen where we can see the pending incoming transfer from SAM102 server. We'll go ahead and highlight that table. And in the bottom here, we'll say New Order. That's going to ask us to assign this to be a new tab or table. In this case, we're going to go ahead and say table and OK. Now this was table number 5. If we needed to change that table number, we could do it here. But we're going to go ahead and say that it's still table 5 and say OK. And that's going to carry us into the Aloha order entry screen where we can then click our floor plan button, the table here in the upper left. And we come back out to the floor plan to see that table number 5 is listed in green, letting us know that it is now our table. Now that table 5 has been transferred, let's go ahead and log back in with our server SAM102 and say OK. And you can see here that table number 5 is purple, so it is owned by Sally now. So let's go ahead and go to the Working with Tables screen. From the Working with Tables screen, we're going to go ahead and click Checkout as we're ready to end our shift and run our checkout for the day. We'll click the Checkout button here at the bottom of the screen, and we'll be asked to confirm that we're ready to run our checkout. We're going to say yes. And of course our checkout will print at the local receipt printer. Now that we're ready to clock out, we can click the clock out button here at the bottom, or if we had side work to finish, we could hit exit and then clock out later. In this case, we're going to go ahead and hit clock out. That's going to take us to the clock out screen, where on the right we'll go ahead and click the clock out button. And then here we'll be asked to declare tips. Just keep in mind that tip declarations can vary from one location to another, so just make sure you understand the rules for claiming tips in your environment. I'm going to go ahead and enter my tips here and say OK, and that carries me back out to the login screen. Let's explore our checkout that we would need to turn into our manager on duty. We can see here all of our basic information at the top, our name, revenue center, our job code. We can also see the sales we created today for food and any beverage totals. We can see our sales in total, our taxes collected and in total. Any voids that were provided to our checks would be listed on our checkout, as well as comps and discounts. So as I get a little farther down here, we can see our gross sales and our payment information for cash and MasterCard, so our credit card transactions, and of course our credit card tips, the $2 from the MasterCard tip we accepted. We have our total cash owed, which is going to be calculated by our cash payments and credit card tips in this particular environment. That can vary. And as we work our way down the checkout here, we can see that there is an employee signature and cash received by signature for the manager. We get a little more payment detail as we edge towards the bottom of the checkout. We can see more payment information for the MasterCard, a little bit of audit information for the void that we had applied to our check, and of course at the very bottom we get some sales detail for any performance measures we have in play. So we have a per person average total and an alcohol total for these performance measures. Back out here in our login screen, we're going to go ahead and log in as employee 101 Sally server and say OK. That's going to take us to our floor plan screen. And this time we're going to see that table number 5 is actually going to move over to table number 6. So we're going to need to transfer this table in order to rename the table. So we're going to go ahead and go to our Working with Tables screen. In the Working with Tables screen, we're going to click Transfer in the lower portion of the screen. And of course we're going to highlight table number 5. And this time, instead of choosing another employee, we're going to go ahead and choose ourselves, employee 101, and say OK. That carries us back out here to our Working with Tables screen where we can see our pending transfer from ourselves, Sally 101 server. We'll highlight table 5 and we'll come down here and hit New Order. That's going to take us to where we have to assign this table or tab a new table or tab name. So we're going to hit Table and say OK. And this time we're going to change this to number 6 and say OK. So we can move that table from table 5 to table 6. We'll say OK here. That, of course, takes us back into the Aloha order entry screen where we could order more items for the table if needed. But this time we'll just go ahead and click this table up here and go back to the floor plan screen so we can see now that table 5 has migrated to table 6. Another key functionality for servers will be to split checks. Now we have the ability to split the check up for the customer, and we can also do an equal payment in the close screen. So let's take a look at a couple scenarios here. Table number 1. When we click on table 1, it's going to take us to the Aloha order entry screen. We're going to click on the split check button up here up top. This takes us to our split check screen, and since we're using seat numbers, we're going to go ahead and have to add a new check to this table. So down here you can see our functionality for combine, add, split items, split seat, and equal split. We're going to go ahead and hit add. This is going to add an extra check on. Now from here we can highlight the seat in question, and that's going to grab all the items for that seat, and we can click on the new table checkbox, and that's going to migrate those items over here. Now you can see here that we've got those items moved on over, and they are in fact split up on the checks. So if we say OK, we're back out here to the Aloha order entry screen. In this scenario though, we're going to go ahead and split an item up, the chips and salsa. The guests want to split that up equally on the check. So we'll say split check, and now we can say split items. So we'll say split items. Excuse me, we're going to have to click the item first, and then we'll hit split item. And that of course is going to ask us how we would like to split it in the quantity of splits. So we're going to say 2 splits because we'll have 2 different checks, and OK. And now we currently have 2 different half salsa and chip items. So in order to grab one of those, we're going to have to click split seat, and that's going to allow us to grab the individual chips and salsa and place them onto each check. Once we get those migrated onto the checks, we can say OK. And now we have 2 checks with the 2 halves applied. Let's go ahead and go over to the close screen. When we go to the close screen and we have split checks, you'll see the checks listed here at the bottom. So I can toggle between the 2 checks, and I can apply payment to either one independently. So I'm going to go ahead and apply payment to both. I'm going to highlight check 1 first and say they're going to pay with cash, and OK. And then I can close this check off, where you'll see that this check is closed and check number 2 is still open. And again, I'll close this one to cash, and I'll say OK. And again, you can see the payment applied here, where I'll close this check, and we're back out to our floor plan screen. Now let's take a look at equal payment. I'm going to click on table number 4. This is going to take me to the Aloha order entry screen, where I'm going to click the close button. And then of course down here in the bottom portion of the screen, I'm going to click equal pay. This asks me to enter the number of payments I'd like to split. So this time we're going to say 3 ways, as we had 3 different individuals drinking 3 different sodas. So we'll say 3 and OK. And that's going to break up the balance due to 3 separate portions of $2.70. So if we apply a payment to one of these, you can see this particular guest 1 is highlighted. I can say cash, and then I'll say OK. And that's going to apply the payment to the first portion of the check. So you have to highlight each guest total due, and then hit cash. And then you can pay for each particular transaction. Now, if you have one that needs to pay with credit card, you'll just process the proper transaction or payment type that you need to apply to the check. Once you get them all applied, I'll just apply cash again. You can close this off, and that's going to let you close that check off. And we're back out here to the floor plan screen. Another server functionality I find helpful is if we click the WWT screen, from here we can see that we have a sales button in the lower portion of the screen. If we click sales, that's going to show us a summary of our sales today. We can see a summary section here. We can click the tabs across the bottom to see sales. We can see payment information. We can see comps that have been applied to our checks and promotions as well. Just a nice snapshot of our overall sales today. We'll say OK, and that takes us back out here to the Working with Tables screen. That's going to complete our Aloha server training for today. I'd like to thank you for taking the class with me today. And if you have interest in learning more about Aloha front of house operations, I recommend checking out the Aloha Server Guide. It's going to cover all front of house server, cashier, and bartender operations in great detail. You can find that at ncr.com or by reaching out to your local account representative. Again, I thank you for taking the class with me, and I wish you the best of luck using the Aloha software. Have a great day.